real quick, let's dispense with something. This is some weirdness, some whatever, but yeah, there's some more forum bullshit. You know, you guys heard last week the round one of the forum bullshit. So after last week, I called out the forum mods for their fucktardedness, and in specific, what do you call it? Osric. I guess they decided, okay, well, they were going to get me. So a couple days later, the very next thing that I really posted in the forums, Arson got a hold of me and he was like, "Guy, did you see this weird thread that this guy started where he's talking about the Dark Wheel, and he found some stuff, and it's like, man, is David Braben and Frontier, are they part of the cult?" And I was like, what the hell? So I looked into the thread, and the guy posted this thread, and he's like, "I found what I think is the most important piece of information that people need to see about the Dark Wheel and Raxla and whatever." And then he went to post some like logs or not logs, but some like quoted stuff and say like, "Hey, look, here is like a quote from Aleister Crowley on some weird, obscure, occult prayer or quote or book or text or something." And it bore a sort of a resemblance, a passing resemblance to part of the Raxla, the Dark Wheel toast about Raxla. So it was, you know, that whole thing with to the jewel of the brow, to the burning, blah, 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 to the this, to the that famous Dark Wheel toast, you know, is sort of similar to that occult shit. And he's like, you know, could this be a link? Could this be telling us something about David Braben or Frontier or whatever? And I went to respond to the post, and I went to say, "Hey, man, just as a heads up, like David Braben and Frontier aren't into the occult in any way that I know of from all of the stuff that I've seen. And as a heads up, David Braben didn't write any of the Raxla shit. All of the Raxla lore shit, David Braben and I always forget, Ian Bell, Alan Bell, one of those two names, Bell. Braben and Bell were two college kids that were cramming through massive amounts of quick coding to make this amazing game for Acornsoft back in 1984 called Elite. You may have heard of it. And while they were doing it, one of the two of them must have been a fan of this guy's book. There was this book written by Steven Eisler called something Alien Worlds : something. And it turns out that Steven Eisler is the pen name of a guy named Robert Hallstock. So they tracked down this guy, Robert Hallstock, or knew him or some way knew of him and got him and said, "Hey, man, you wrote this book, this Alien Worlds book, and the book was like broken up into thirds. There were like three separate. It was like a what is that called? Where you have not a collage, but you know how you have a book where it's like three different stories that don't match. They're in different worlds, but they're just
anthology.
Put together. Anthology. There you go. Thank you. That's why you're here, Roy. He wrote this anthology book that had three separate stories in it, and the first story was, I forget what, and the second story was another thing, and the third story was called, I think it was called the Osira Raxla. And in this book, it's this crazy fucking book, and the book is, or the story is, there's these interdimensional lizard people called the Osira Raxla, and they travel through this gateway that's called Raxla. They travel between dimensions. They're able to travel through time. They have this weird, wacky cult where they can like control the universe and do weird shit. And they can like possess machinery and computers and stuff. So like if they want to kill you, this weird lizard cult, like they can murder you in the perfect way, like, and get away with it scot-free. Because it's like, let's say I want to murder Arson, right? And I have this I'm a weird lizard cult person that has the ability to inhabit machinery and stuff. All I do is wait until he gets into an elevator and then possess the elevator to plummet 80 stories down to, ground floor instantly, murdering him. Or I possess his car and, turn off the brakes and, steer into cliff or something. And like, so they had all these sort of weird powers, and they could pull strings behind the scenes and yada, yada, yada. This book was trippy as fuck. I mean, it was crazy weird. And I put in there, I was like, hey man, this guy wrote this book called The Alien World or whatever. And it's this cool, weird, funky, trippy, pothead sci-fi anthology series book that had like all of this super weird shit. Like this guy had access to the good weed, because it's like weird shit of like, oh, look, it's mom and pop and the little boy and girl at the breakfast table in like a 1950s Norman Rockwell type painting. But like half of the people were replaced by big, huge insectoids that were just sitting at the table waiting to eat their cereal or reading the morning paper. Like it was some weird, trippy shit. Anyways, the forum moderators took this opportunity as the first post that I had made since I called them out for being fucking fascist assholes. They took this opportunity to post or to ban me from the forums. And they said, you mentioned drugs, because I said it was a trippy pothead book. They said, you mentioned drugs. We have a zero tolerance policy about drugs. So you're banned from the forums. Now, they didn't say like, oh, you're banned like, you know, for a week, or you're banned for 3 weeks. They just said, you're banned from the forums, 30-point violation, which is like, what the fuck? Like just out of nowhere. And this wasn't a situation of like, hey man, we keep warning you, don't say it's a pothead book, or don't say something about potheads, or they don't whatever. And I think in that thread that we talked about last week, there was that guy that was like, I called him a pothead because he was like thinking I was a frontier plant and that I ruled the galaxy or something, like all this weird shit, you know. So this wasn't, I've never been warned about like, hey man, you can't mention pothead, or you can't this, that, or the other. I didn't say it in a derogatory way. I actually said it was a cool, funky, weird, trippy, you know, because like in the 70s, you had all that weird sci-fi shit that was very sort of, you know, some hippies smoking weed and like, yeah, man, I've got this idea about this interdimensional gateway, man, and these lizard people. It was very innocuous. It was very just like not a fucking problem. And out of nowhere, they went, and no warning, no first step, no second step, no third step, just you're banned. They didn't sign their name to it anywhere. There was no like, oh, it's this person or that person. I guarantee you, it was either Osric or one of his little buddies doing their little bullshit bullying, you know, fucking tactics like they've been doing. And there was, and also the whole thing like, oh, you could appeal this, that button wasn't there. No time frame, no name, no nothing. It was very, very suspicious and bullshit. So I went and actually looked and found there was somebody sent it to me like, here's the actual email. Just go here and what do you call it? Appeal it. It's like, this is absolute bullshit. You can do a search on the keyword search on the forums and find fucking 80 different threads where somebody posted something and said, you know, marijuana or pot or, you know, some kind of whatever. And this is just complete bullshit. So I filed an appeal and I said, hey man, I you know, it was an innocuous reference. This is clearly bullying. This is clearly absolute bullshit. And I got a response back fairly quickly. Again, this one said it's from the community management team, but it's not signed. Nobody had the balls to put their name on it. But it said, we have a rule. This is the rule. It says you're not allowed to reference illegal activities or drugs or whatever. So, you know, we feel that the decision was proper and we're not accepting your appeal, which is fucking ridiculous. Again, this is so blatantly obvious that this is a completely bullshit, bullying, unfair application of the rules, to the extent that multiple people in the Discord were looking stuff up and they're like, one of the guys, he's like, yeah, man, there's like, I pulled up and reported like 40 or 50 threads where people were talking about drugs. You know, they're talking about pot or marijuana. I think he did a keyword search just for marijuana and was reporting them and saying like, hey, this is a rules violation. And they banned him for like 6 days. They gave him like a 6-day ban and said that the thing that he did that was wrong or improper was he was, quote, I forgot what the quote was. It was something like revenge reporting. Yes. And unbeknownst to me, another person had also sort of started doing similar things where they were just pulling and looking up threads where people were talking about drugs. And that guy also got like a 6-day ban, and they said revenge reporting. It's absolutely clear that this is a bullshit application of the rule. I had no warning. Even Stuart GT, I was talking to him on the Discord publicly, and he said, like, wait, what? That's crazy. They gave you a 30-day ban for one drug reference. That's like ridiculous.
30 point, not
a 30-day, a forever ban. And they're like, he was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And it's like, yeah, but this is what's happened. And, we've got multiple members of Frontier in the Discord that saw the chat that was going on all day about it, where everybody was like, what the hell? This happened like on Tuesday or Wednesday. Everybody's like, what the hell? And yet it, has stuck. So this is what it is. So again, I think if anything, I don't think that Osric and his little crony buddies could have done a better job of highlighting my point that the Elite Dangerous forums are an absolute dumpster fire than by doing what they did. It's fucking ridiculous. I see Arson had something he wanted to talk about.
One thing I want to say is the drug references are within the rating of the game. Onion Head, which many of us know about, is a flower. It is directly analogous to marijuana. And not only is it in the game, but there are many strains of it. So not being able to reference drugs in the elite section seems kind of silly to me. But the other thing that caught my ear on this was the whole revenge reporting thing. I hadn't heard that reasoning before, but I do got a comment. If your forum staff have to have a policy against revenge reporting that only occurs when it's apparent that admins or moderators in this case, are misusing the rules selectively, that's a big red flag that you got a problem.
Oh, they also have a rule that says you can't question them. I definitely want to highlight the injustice of it, the fact that this is complete bullshit, and but it's not exactly a thing that I'm brokenhearted over, because, like I said, the Elite Dangerous forums are a fucking waste of time anyways. That because of the way they're being run, they're an absolute dumpster fire and a waste. So I'm not going to really cry myself to sleep over it.